think we're going to get started. This class is the how to create construction document with Revit MEP. And a little bit about myself. I'm working for Cosentini Associate based on New York City. And I've been working in this industry about 3 years. And previously working for a custom fabrication company just using Inventor. So have a different types of 3D modeling experience before. And just a little bit about our company. We have 55 years experience. We have a fully integrated MEP forum. We are located in New York City, and Chicago, Boston, and Orlando, and Paris, and Korea, and the Middle East as well. And we are really committed to being in sustainable design. So that's our company's main goal. And the recent job is, for instance, is like Chicago Spire, Guggenheim Museum, and Harvard University, and Louvre Alzheimer's Institute, which is right in Vegas, and Uiseong City in Korea with Gale International. The Revit is a great tool in 3D modeling wise, but in MEP industry has been its own tradition from, let us say, hand drafting to CAD drafting. And right now we have this 3D modeling tool has capability of generating 2D documents. The beauty of this Revit MEP is, unlike the other 3D modeling tool, you don't have to do it twice. For instance, let's say you're still preparing a document with AutoCAD, and on top of it, you are modeling with some other 3D tool. But beauty of this Revit MEP is you can do it together. As you model it, that model reflects the 2D plan exactly. So there's no room for error. So that's the really beauty, and that's the main goal of this Revit MEP, and this is what this class is all about. Just quick brief introduction. Let's say we have this sanitary piping with some P-trap and some elbows and pipings and some vent line going on top of it. And in 2D plan, we want to be look like, in 2D plan in AutoCAD, just like way we've been doing it last 40 or 50 years is either AutoCAD or hand draft. And you can do that in Revit MEP as well. It's not just out of boxes 2D plan that you have to follow. You can actually modify all the families in 2D looking. Same as here, I see some four-way piping, some four-way valve and a piping and some heat exchange and pumps, and it can be looks just like this one. This is real construction documents, and just want to give you a big picture of what we are doing it. Before we even started, let's talk about some initial setup. This is really important because once you set this up, you don't have to worry about this anymore throughout the project. No matter what kind of project you're doing it, once you set this up properly, you can use it as a template, as your company standard. Which is kind of tricky, but once you set this up, it's going to be very helpful. First thing is, you have to know, obviously, you have to know what kind of unit you are following with. So in Cosentini, we have two different types of template, one for US system and one for metric system. And because while project is developing it, it's kind of tricky switching units. So once you start it, it's always better following one unit, and you have to decide in upfront. In this unit setting, you have 5 different disciplines, one for common structure, HVAC, electrical, and piping. And this can be useful in certain way. For instance, let's say you have a duct size, and you don't want to show the inch sign on a duct size. And this is where you go into the setting and get rid of the inch sign. And for instance, let's say you have a CFM requirement for each ductwork, and you don't want to show the CFM symbol. You just want to have, let's say, parentheses on between for the CFM. You can modify that in tag family, but this is where you started. So let me just show you what I meant. That unit setting is under project unit. And for instance, if you go to HVAC, there's a duct size. And you see the duct size, formatting, you can choose unit symbol is either none or inch sign, something like that. And let's say you have all those set up for the units. In traditional CAD standard, you have all different types of thickness of line types. Let's say the supply ductwork is different from exhaust ductwork line thickness. For instance, let's say your double line supply ductwork line thickness is different than your single line ductwork thickness. So this is where you have to set up. If you see left-hand side, that's the number for line thickness. On the right side is the actual line width when you print out by different scale. So I didn't mess around with the numbers. So this is pretty much out of boxes number. So, but you have to understand what you are printing out actually. Let's say you choose the line weight of 5. This is where that line width is coming from. That number 5 line weight, for instance. And next setup is the mechanical setting. This is really important for initial setting. First thing is, when you look at on top of it, there's a hidden line. And there's a code inside gap and an outside gap. And the inside gap, outside gap, that number is that number decide that break line width. When, let's say, piping is crossing each other, one on top of it, that number is going to tell you that break line width. So, but I set it up as a 1 to 32nd. But this is important from starting from a step by step. Let's say from unit setting. In unit setting, you can set up that maximum numbers. Like you can go up to, for instance, 1/16, and you cannot have an option to setting a 1 to 32nd. So it's kind of important that in initial unit setting, you make sure that common length unit setting can handle up to 1 to 32nd or even better. So I think the default setting is like just 1 inches, which is not going to work in this case. So that's kind of important factor. And the another thing is the pipe and drop symbol. That's the same story as the inside gap and outside gap break line symbol, break line gap lengths. That pipe rise symbol number decide the actual size of that symbol in printing. So let's say you increase that number, and the piping circle symbol is going to increase. And if you decrease the number, and obviously the symbol is going to decrease as well. But you have to coordinate between those two numbers. How do you coordinate? You have to actually put the numbers in. Actually, you got to have paper copy from a Revit MEP and compare one by one. That's what I did to set up this number. But it can be varied by scale. It can be varied by different view types. Yes.
Oh, I just wondered if you were going to show us an example of that.
Sure. Yeah, why not? For instance, I have this pipe symbol right here. And on the setting, let's say I go to mechanical setting, where is it? And I change pipe drop size to, let's say, 1/8 inch. And I click OK. And the size get different. And obviously, you don't want to look like this kind of symbol. So I'm going to change it back. Same as the gap size. I have this gap between. And in order to see the gap, it has to be thick line setting, which is right here. And that number can be varied by those setting, inside gap and outside gap setting. Yes?
When I do that, I don't actually see the hidden lines underneath. I don't see the hidden lines at all. Is there another setting somewhere where I would have to?
Well, yes. In order to see that hidden line, it has to be wireframe. The hidden line setting. It shouldn't be a wireframe. For instance, this line setting has to be hidden line. If it's on the wireframe, you don't see it. But this view is faster. I'm going to touch that part later on, but it has to be wireframe in order to see that hidden line. And the another trick is this initial setup is really important because of, let's say, you didn't set up this guy, and you have a draw ductwork, and you don't like the way it looks, and you just want to increase the line thickness. What people most usually do is click the ductwork, right-click, override view, elements, and do it weight as I want a 6, and the color is a black. If I click it, the line disappears. This is really important, actually. So do not ever overwrite that line. Overwrite any object in 2D plan. That's going to mess up that break line issue. So does that answer your question? Yep. Oh, that view has all the plan view, not even plan view. All the view has that setting. Oh, also, you mean the discipline of the view? Yeah, it's on the mechanical. And the coordination doesn't have that break line as well. That's what you're saying, right? On top of it, there's a MEP heat, which is this guy. This guy is decide the line types when there's a line to be hidden. So if you're not happy with, for instance, this line type, that's the place that you have to go to be changed. For instance, you can change whatever you wanted. So you can decide the hidden line types. No, the default, I think the default is just hidden line. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I'm going to touch on that part as well. How to create the different line types. And line style. I'm doing step by step, but I'm kind of recommending follow the steps that I'm going through, because if you mess around the steps, it may not work in. So it's kind of important. The line style has the setup of, you can create, just like you said, you can create mechanical hidden line style in line style settings. As you can see on the bottom of it, there's a mechanical hidden line with a line weight number 4 with the colors and a line patterns as a 16-inch hidden line pattern. So that's you can create any types of line style in this setting. And next thing, important thing is this line style is actually can do the, rather say, drafting. For instance, if you go to drafting and a detail line, this category is from that line style. But I want to have this ductwork to be line weight number 5. Then how do we decide it? How do we set this up? And that way, the way to do it is you can go to object style. Within those object style, you can decide, for instance, ductworks. I want this ductworks to be 5 line weight and black color with a solid line pattern. And all the drop and rise and aligning and insulation and center line setting, you can do it in object style. Actually, this is the only setting you have to do it. And don't mess around on line weight or line style or line type in anywhere else. That's gonna destroy your views. So this is the only one place you can go. So how do you decide the line patterns? Obviously, there's a different line patterns as a default, but you can create your own line pattern pretty much. The way you do it is pretty simple. Line patterns. And you can just create a new, and you can just name it whatever you want it, and it has types of dash or dot and space between. So you can actually put the values of the line lengths and the values of that between two lines. So you can pretty much create your own line patterns pretty much for everything.
How about text within the line?
Yes, you can creating a text. Let me quickly show you. I have a different heights of text. Let's say I'm choosing 1/8" Arial. And click the text, go to element properties, go to edit new, and you can duplicate it whatever you want it. For instance, I want to have a 1/4" text and change the text size to 1/4 inches. That is actually, it's not a text, that's the tag to the piping.
No, we're talking about showing a line that says that's text in the line.
Like a single line.
Yeah.
Like this?
Yeah, no.
Yes and no? What is it?
Oh, yes. Right.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay, I don't have that family loaded up right now.
Can you import the line type from AutoCAD?
No, I'm not recommended to do that. I know you have already set up line type in AutoCAD, which we do, same, but I figured that it's difficult to do that. It's better fresh sheet started in Revit MEP. It's pretty much you gotta do it just like the way you did in AutoCAD. So there's no trick or there's no easy way to do it. Just gotta do it. All right, let's go back. So just like I said initially, do we have to do it every single time? No. Once you set this up, this could be your company's standard template. So you can put this on somewhere really safe so everybody can access to it. Just copy and paste down as a central file, and that can be your starting point of any project. And another big thing is obviously family modification. Well, it's kind of nice having the out-of-boxes families, but in most of the time, we don't want that look in 2D documents. For instance, I have this rectangular dug elbow, and left one is from out-of-boxes, and right one is something that I modified, putting some turning bane. So it's pretty much it looks like our company standard. So how do we do that? Let's say you have this out-of-boxes dug elbow, right? Before I even started, it's always better modifying existing family than starting from scratch. Creating a family is not really simple task. It's even harder than controlling whole project. Let's say you can create your own family from starting from scratch, then you are really an expert. So then I don't even have to be here. So for instance, this is elbow from out-of-boxes, and just edit family, and just open up the family. All right, so you open up the family, right? First thing you got to do is save it as something else. Let's say I want to name it test, and put it under my folder. Okay, and I saved it. And this is separated from that out-of-box family, which is safe now. And there's two different lines that I'm going to talk about. One is model line, and one is a symbolic line. What is different between those two? Well, it's pretty much the same. The only difference is in 3D view, let's say you have a model line, right? And it's going to show up in 3D view. So it's actually model in the model. But if you do only for a symbolic line, it's like a tag. You don't see it in 3D view, but it's there in 2D plan. So we're only talking about 2D plan look. So it doesn't really matter which line type you are choosing it. So let's say I want to put the turning vane like this. First thing you got to do is creating your own line type. In duct fitting category, there's 3 different line types, which is center line and insulation and lining. And let's say I want to create new line subcategory under duct fittings. Let's say turning vane, and this goes under duct fittings. And I click OK. I want this to be line type 3, colors to be this, and line pattern to be, let's say, 8-inch align line. Click Apply and OK. And go to symbolic line and choose that line type you just created. Go to Plan, click it, and click it. It's kind of important that you have to put some constraint, because obviously as this duct fitting is going to change its own size by ductwork. So this is parametric family. So it's kind of important the edge of this line is fixed to this corner. So how do we do that? Go to Align, click that line, and go to Tab, and click it, the edge of the line, and affix it. Same thing as the other side. And once you do that and load it into project, and I don't want to mess up the preloaded project, this is what it looks like. How do you control it? Go to visibility setting. If you go under duct fittings, there's a turning vane you just created. That subcategory under duct fittings, that line type you just created, is going to fall into the project automatically with the same line color, line type, and line weights. So you don't have to worry about it in a project. And another stuff is duct access family modification. And this is fire smoke damper. I don't know if it looks like fire smoke damper or not, but I called it fire smoke damper. And it has a 3D. It's exactly same model, but you're looking at 3D views and a 2D plan. Obviously, it looks different. And in 3D, it looks real somewhat. And in 2D plan, it has only a symbolic line. And how do you control it? Well, this one is relatively simple. Let's say I have this fire smoke damper. The base family that I started was that the transition family. I forgot what that was. If you split it, you see this guys, the transition family. That's the base family that I started with this fire smoke damper. And in 2D plan, it looks as a symbolic plan view. But in 3D plan, it looks like this. The way to do it is, if you open up this family, I have two different settings. I model this extrusion and this extrusion, and I went to visibility, and I just said, just show me in a fine detail view. That's all I did. And same as this detail, this extrusion as well. And I made this extrusion, and I go to visibility, saying, just show me in a medium detail and a class detail, but don't show me on a fine detail. So after I came back in project, obviously all the plan view is medium detail. And all the 3D view is fine detail. So if you change 3D views into medium detail, it's going to obviously change it. So that's the only thing that I do. And if you want to see the fine detail in a plan, that's fine. That's what you're going to see. But I want to be shown as a symbolic line as a fire smoke damper. Yep.
Can you do a global type of situation for all your accessories so plan view they all just plot at medium?
Yes. What you can do is creating the view template. And go to under, let's say you're creating a default template, right? In Revit 2008, you don't have control this inclusion. So let's say you create a one view template and it's stuck there, and whatever you change it later on in a view, and let's say you apply this view template to all throughout that mechanical plan view, and it's going to mess up that whatever you change it after, which it sucks. So I would say this is really, really great improvement in 2009 version. So what you can do is just creating a one simple view template. Let's say mechanical plan, let's say medium view, and just uncheck everything else except this guy, and apply this template throughout all the mechanical view setting. And it's going to only change that view types, so you don't have to do it over and over and over again. So that's the way I'm going to approach it.
You do that?
Yeah. It's really, yeah, in a plotting, it has to be a hidden line. So, but sometimes I work on a wireframe view and I forgot to change it back to hidden line. And I don't even have to stress that myself, make sure it's on a hidden line. Just click those guys and I apply all the mechanical plan view with a hidden line view setting. So I don't have to worry about lines breaking out or not because of the wireframe view setting. And document management. So how do you manage the documents? Well, this is what I did. You see this guy, and I have view types. This arrangement is pretty much all up to you, but this is what I did. I sorted out by trade, and under the trade, for instance, in mechanical, I have a floor plans and the other types of plans, for instance, 3D views. And under those floor plans, I have a plot drawing, I have a working drawing. And under that, there's a views, plans. How do you set this up? Go to right-click on the views and then go to properties. And go to folders. This is the way you set up those arrangements. First thing is sub-discipline. I create something called sub-discipline in order to, I think it's default. Is it default, sub-discipline? I think it is, right? So you can just type it in the sub-discipline and just name it. If you want to name it mechanical, that's fine. It's going to show up as a mechanical right here. Or if you want to call it HVAC, you can just type it in a view. What I'm saying in type it in is go to right-click, go to view property for any views. On the sub-discipline, just type it in, like HVAC. And it's going to show up here. So that's how you create it. And I have another thing called this working or plot. Because it takes longer to open up hidden, let's say, wireframe view. Let me put it that way. It takes longer opening a view with a hidden line setting than wireframe setting. I don't want to even deal with it. So I separate them out as a working plan and a plot plan. In most of the time, I'm not even touching that plot plan. I just go to working plan because it's a wireframe working setting. It just pops up quickly. So how do you set this up? Go to Setting and Project Parameters, creating a new, you should say Add, but go to Modify, and just name it I set View Types. And it's going to be under Graphic Parameters. And in what category I want to apply? I want to apply only for the views. And after I do that, it's going to show up in all the views, view types. So I'm going to say plot, and it's going to show up in a plot in Project Browser. So it's totally up to you, but I found it, this is the easy way to do it. And next thing is view overlay. Well, the left side, this is exactly same ductwork. Left one is the wireframe view setting with a 2-inch lining on that ductwork. And the right side is exact same ductwork with a hidden line view setting. But obviously when you plot it out, you don't want to have wireframe view setting because line is not breaking when ductwork is on top of each other. So, but then how do you show the lining on a ductwork? You got to draw it. How do you do that? So that's the one challenge. Next challenge is with a fine detail, the piping will show double line. And a medium detail, the piping will show single line piping with the symbols. But I want to have like 6-inch piping risers with a double line, real size risers with a single line piping sticking out from the risers. So somehow we got to combine those two views. But how do you do that? Well, this is actual construction documents. The one on the left is, this is a hidden line view setting. And you have a views ductwork with a lining shows up. And on the bottom, I have a 2 double line piping risers shows up, having a single line piping symbolic line is sticking out from a risers. This is simply overlaying 2 views. Let's say I have a plot drawing. Is it this guy? Right here. And under one plot drawing, I have 2 views, as you see. And I'm going to delete this guy. And I'm going to delete this guy as well. So first thing you got to do is, on the mechanical plan, this is exactly same ductwork. You're just overlaying 2 views. So I have this ductwork right here, and this one has 2-inch lining thicknesses set up, which obviously you don't see it because of its hidden line view setting. If you go to wireframe, you're obviously going to see it. And you are putting this view on paper space. Now, you're just creating a copy of this view which has exactly same setting with this one, but this is wireframe. So you pretty much bring this copied view on the paper, and it's going to find the spot automatically right here, so that you have this line type. This is kind of tricky, but as of now, there's no way you can show it other way. So this is the only way you can show it, but of course there's a lot of downside, which is pretty much the same story as the view overlay as well, pretty much, but it has more control. Let's say you have a view, let's say you made a transparent ductwork. How do you know later on you made that ductwork as a transparent? Unless you wrote it down somewhere. But it's almost impossible to keep track on it. So, but in this way, you put this ductwork on a separate work set and just put it apart and make a separate view with a view template showing only that ductwork only. So even if it's on the same floor plan, same ductwork, you're only having two different views just laying on top of each other. Which is same as the piping. One view has medium detail, one view has a fine detail. So just in medium detail view, you just hide that riser in means of putting under, let's say I have a create riser, piping riser work set. And you just hide that work set down on a medium detail and turn on that work set on fine detail and just overlaying those two views each other. It's just going to work. So what's the downside? This is not a magic tool, obviously. It needs a lot of tensions. Sometimes it's going to give you a hard time too. But you got the plans that you wanted. And also, there's no hidden line gap shown those areas that views overlaid. Because of that wireframe view is on top of it, you're not going to see that hidden line. That's the downside. So you got to be really careful. Well, some people say, well, I want to show the hidden line with a lining shown in the same time. Well, there's no way you can do it as of now. It requires extra work set and views to work on. You're obviously creating extra views for each floor plans. And you are creating extra work set to control those two same objects. So you have to understand those work set and views completely. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And also, complete control of all object and views. And what I'm saying is, let's say you totally forget about this view setting, and you're just doing all your work, and later on you found out all your view is messed up because of this. Because you have to know what you are doing. Otherwise, I'm not recommend you to do that. Okay, visibility controls. There's a lot of ways to control the visibilities. First thing you got to do is you can control it by work set. You can control it by view filter. Yeah, you can control by model categories and templates and linked architectural views. By controlling by work set means it's simply you can turn on and off the work set that you want to show, which is quite simple. And second thing is the control by view filter. In the same plan view, you will have work set tab and a filter tab. What I will do is, let's say you work on an electrical, and obviously you don't want to see any piping or mechanical work on your electrical drawing. So first thing I would do is just turning off all the work sets, mechanical work set or electrical the plumbing work set in a first point. And creating those filter is a little tricky. You can create your filter by work set as well, but you're controlling already. So you don't have to do that. And you can filter it by system name and a system type. And if you go into the system part, this is totally different story. So that means this is another means of controlling that views, which I'm not going to go into it at this class. But let's say you just create a work set. And you will have a work set turning on and off and filters turning on and off. And next thing I'll do is model categories. And if you said you are pretty sure and you were working on a mechanical drawing and you don't want to see any electrical equipment, and you can simply just turn this off, on and off. And next thing is view templates. As we mentioned before, by the view template, it has the exact same setting as in just view setting, just like we did. So I'd rather work on view template and set it once and just apply it throughout. I figured that was the easiest way. And the one last thing is, let's say you linked your architectural model and you want to see, I mean, as soon as you link that architectural or structural model, by default, you're going to have background as gray background with a default architectural background, which is, you don't want to see it. It doesn't even have a room names. It looks totally different than what you see in a printed out architecture drawing. Even architect has 10 different types of plans in one floor. And they're using it, same technique, well, a little different technique to creating a same plan views in their own architecture drawing. So what we want to do is we want to reference that specified view as a background to be shown room names and all the walls that architects wants to be shown on the plans. So how do we do that? And if you go under visibility setting, which is BB or BG, you can have this Revit link tab. And under this tab, you can customize those linked view. And this linked view, if you have that architectural model, obviously this structural model doesn't have any plans because I deleted. But if you have any plans, you can specify that plans right here and I click it and apply it. Then you will have that specified plan exactly same as what architect has in their model. So it's not creating your own background because of you linked it. You are referencing that specified view as a background that we're going to use. Oh, well, this model is currently working model as the real project. So this model, the architectural model is about 300 megabytes, and it takes really long time, as you know. The question was, let's say you're working on electrical drawings and you have some mechanical equipments to be darker line weights, right? I see. Oh, okay. I see what you're talking about. By default setting, even in electrical views, you are using mechanical discipline to be shown architectural model as a gray line and our stuff as a dark line. But you want to be shown that mechanical equipment to be gray line, and it's just like a architectural drawings, right? What I would do is creating another filter and apply those filter only for the mechanical equipment on those electrical drawing. And in a filter, you can control that gray line style. But keep in mind that if you apply filter, that object can still break. I'm saying in hidden line view setting, let's say your lighting fixtures on top of the electrical and mechanical equipment, it's still going to have that break line because you're controlling by filter, not visibility graphic overrides. So I really not recommended to do visibility graphic override unless you really have to. So coming back to that linked architectural model setting. Say you have this architectural model, and you can go to custom, and you can choose any plans that you wanted. So let's say you're working on a second floor, and as soon as you link your model, it's not going to be looks like what architecture it has in printout. But when architect plotted out their own drawing from Revit, you're going to have exact same drawing as a background in Revit MEP as well by choosing that specified views. So you don't have to worry about this wall is not showing, that wall is not showing, where's the door. I think that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Page 3, the plumbing drawing you had shows is how you plan to look for construction drawing. How did you get to that?
You mean the fittings and P-traps? Okay. For instance, fittings, I use the same technique as I did modifying that family. I create my own line on that elbow family and control that visibility. And in default, it's going to have a radius bending on the any piping fittings. But the bend line, I control it by filter. I create a separate work set, separate filter for the bend line, and I create separate work set for the bend line, and I control it by filter. And I just specify in a filter saying this is going to be the bend line, I want to be dash line, and I want to be shown as this thickness, I want to be shown as different color. So that's how I control it. And for the P-trap, I use the same technique for that fire smoke damper. I create circle and a half radius on a 2D plan, and I'm gonna specify that circle and a half circle to be shown on a 2D plan and a medium detail, and not showing on a 3D model. And obviously, for that P-trap bent line, I specified it as to be hidden on a plan view because I don't want to see that. Does that answer your question? Yep. Anything else? Yep.
You said you were recommending going to those graphics to override the objects. So
I said not to use override that any object because, or why? Because you're not going to have break line, first of all, in a hidden line view, like I showed you before. Yeah, let me show you again. Let's say you have this, right? And once you click this ductwork and right click and override graphics in view in elements, line weight, either line weight or colors or patterns, doesn't matter. Once you overwrite that, that break line gone. Yes. It doesn't. Let's say ductworks, I want to overwrite in here. Well, it works. Yep. But it's going to be overwrite only for that view. It's not going to apply all throughout.